However, we are not in post-conflict situation. We are still in conflict situation, but I've written post-conflict situation, Afghanistan. The new constitution of Afghanistan and the international treaties which Afghanistan is committed on it, guarantees women's rights. But yet, one of the articles of new constitution is that the in a state no law should be contrary to Islam, and the other article says that the women and men are equal before law. Well, our judicial reform is going very slow. For example, for the time being, we have only one family court in Kabul. And while there is a huge kind of range of violence against women are going on in all provinces of Afghanistan. Our legislative body is challenged and dominated by other influential powers, as I mentioned, the Religion Council and the community councils. The Sharia law, which is one of the obligations in the Constitution, it is imperfectly interpreted by men. For example, marriage, polygamy, divorce, and child custody is the right of men. Like, based on Islam, the polygamy is permitted, but under the conditions. Impact on women's rights. The local councils dominated by men. Law partially approves and partially rejects damaging customs. Women's rights depend on customs. Women's rights considered as a family issue related to family owner, and no one has the right to touch on this issue. Violence against women widely tolerated. Normally, it's naturally accepted by women themselves as well. And women, they don't trust to courts because there is lots of bureaucracy, and sometimes women has been raped in the courts. We're conducting workshops, conferences, media campaigns to raise awareness of women's human rights, since the women's human rights was not an issue and it was not an agenda in the development of Afghanistan before. As I mentioned, that Afghanistan is a tribal society, and community councils are the influential power in this society. So the approach that we are handling or we're getting is establishing women councils beside the main councils. We're saying shuras, women shuras in tribal communities, to kind of bring women in the decision-making structures. The entry points. We think that engaging with the religious communities would be one of the approaches, that targeting men for sensitizing on women's human rights is the other entry that we think would be useful. Drawing on Islamic scholars on interpretation of Sharia law, training Muslim feminist scholars for Haneefi law, which is Afghanistan is following this sect of the Islam. We're ensuring women's basic needs are also met. In-depth studies required on legal pluralism in Afghanistan, and developing advocacy tools on new law reform are also needed. This is the group that's working on the law reform and advocating and lobbying, and I'm one of the founder members of this group. The campaign, the media campaign that we had on violence against women. And this is also a mass demonstration. A woman was stoned in one province of Afghanistan for having a sexual relation with a strange man. Thank you. Thank you.
You're really doing some good work there. I really commend your efforts. And just want to know how the people, the local people, react to your kind of programming, because it affects, it touches their culture. It's some of these things they've been doing them for very many years. So how do they react, both men and women? How do they react to your programming?
point that you mentioned, that does our activities created any new conflict? Well, actually, since we are focusing on women's rights issues, we have training session and workshops for women in north part of Afghanistan. And after 2 years of work with women, we have received suggestion from them that we should conduct the same program for their husbands, because they now know, it's peace education program, and they said that we now know what is the cause of conflict in our society, in our houses, but our husbands don't know, and it created crisis. So they should also be aware of that to decrease the conflict in our houses. It's the same. You may also knew about the south part of Afghanistan where women are burning themselves because they are aware from their rights, but they don't have mechanism to protect them, to support them. Struggle against patriarchy is not an easy deal. It has a big risks, but we cannot stop our activities because of patriarchy.